Hey everybody, Christopher K. Smith. It's my FibLines quarterly update for April 2nd of 2021. So I do these updates once per quarter. And we're going to talk about the markets from the perspective of the FibLines indicator. We introduce the FibLines. What is it? How it works. Talk about the markets, some interesting insights we get via the FibLines indicator. Talk about updates to the indicator and what's going on in the markets generally. So what is FibLines? FibLines is a technical indicator you can apply to different stocks that projects where the stock will go based on this Fibonacci sequence, which is invented by Leonardo da Fibonacci, an Italian 15th century mathematician. And he discovered the sequence that has to do, and he observed it related to the growth of how rabbits reproduce, strangely of all things. But turns out the pattern is all over nature and all over the financial markets. So how does it apply to the stocks? Well, here's a symbol of a restoration chart of restoration hardware. And we're going to slide it back a little bit in time here. And we're going to choose the Fibonacci retracements tool. It looks like this little percent sign down here. And we're going to draw a line. First of all, we're going to highlight this area here. I'm going to draw a line from the top to the bottom of this initial move here. We're going to call this measured move. And when you do that, the Fibonacci retracements tool draws lines at 161%. I'll show you. We zoom back here. It draws lines at 161% and 261% and 423% above that initial move. And those are multiples of the Fibonacci sequence and are all based on percentages above this initial move right here. So when you do that, you'll notice some interesting things, that the market tends to pause at the 161% above that initial measured move, 261%, 423, and then sub-levels below that. So it's interesting to draw these lines. However, it's a bit of a pain to do that, and the levels change for every stock. So what the FibLines indicator does is it calculates those levels for you and adds them as horizontal lines on the chart. So let's to add the FibLines indicator, I'll remove this manual drawing. Once you do that, you'll see that the lines are drawn for you, and the indicator automatically draws lines at 161%, 261%, 423%, and then other levels above that. So let's take a look at how the indicator mapped out performance here in restoration hardware. Resistance at 161, resistance at 261, came all the way back to 261, went up to the 423, came all the way back after that, and then went up to this 1185 level, excuse me, the 685 level, and all the way up here to the 1185. So what this tells me is that restoration hardware is basically done for the time being, because it had a move of, it's now reached the level of 1100% above its initial move as measured by that sequence right here. So it's went from the top of 100 all the way up here to 1108% of that initial measured move. So that's what the Fibonacci tells us. So that's FibLines indicator. If you want to get more details about how it works, go up to YouTube and search for Intro to FibLines, and I'll talk about how it works and show you, talk about some of the theory behind it. Okay, performance overview. Taxable account up 3.69% for the quarter. At the beginning of the quarter, I took some of my IRA rollover and put that in professional management with E-Trade, creating a blend portfolio of ETFs from BlackRock, and that's up to 31% for the year. Not bad for one quarter. My own self-directed rollover account up 4.61%, and we could see the S&P was up 500, up 6%. Russell 2000, surprising outperformer for first quarter of 2021, up 14%, and Dow up 7%. So interesting story here is the NASDAQ took a break. A lot of the money came out of the NASDAQ stocks and went into some of the more traditional industrials and things like that. So what's the story of 2021? Recovery from COVID, of course. It's amazing when you think about it. Beginning of 2020, a mere 15 months ago, we barely even knew what COVID was. And now here it is. We have a vaccine. The vaccine was created and funded by the government. The government went out and bought hundreds of millions of doses of the vaccine before they even knew it worked. And here it is 50 months later. I already have shot number 1 in my arm, and shot number 2 is coming in a couple weeks. So that's been amazing. Amazing. You could not expect more from the government than we got with the way they handled COVID here. Second thing, the government is being hugely stimulative. They're literally, well, not literally, but they're dropping money from helicopters. What do I mean by that? Well, obviously the fiscal stimulus passed recently, $1,400 to a lot of Americans. I didn't make up this term, by the way, helicopter drop. It's invented by Milton Friedman as a rhetorical device to talk about monetary policy that's intended to, be extremely stimulative. So that's what the government's doing right now. They're basically handing money out right and left to try to get the economy going again. And that's going to be hugely stimulative over the long term, and a lot of that money is going to end up in the stock market. We saw that recent all-time highs in the SPY, S&P 500, and the Dow. Strength in Russell we already talked about. And interesting, some of the money has come away from some of your high-flying NASDAQ stocks and into your more traditionals. But in terms of the recovery or the sell-off we've seen, Tesla has always been a big performer recently. Went all the way as high as about 900 and sold off about 30% from the top. So big sell-off there. ROKU, big sell-off there as well. It's a high flyer recently. Zoom Video. So a lot of these are stay-at-home plays or stocks that were extremely hot have sold off and gotten hit pretty hard. So that may seem bad if you're into these stocks, but it's actually good news because rather than seeing a broad sell-off, we're just seeing a rotation out of some of these high flyers into your more traditional kinds of names. Other interesting stocks in terms of FibLines, Discovery came out with a streaming service recently. Stock really ripped all the way up here to the top of, let's see, the 100, 161, 221, all the way up here to almost a 685 line until it turned around, came all the way back. The stock's been a dog for years. I like Discovery Channel, but it's amazing to see what the stock has done. Restoration Hardware looked at, Peloton, big stay-at-home name. Sold off CRISPR Therapeutics. So a lot of these really hot NASDAQ stocks really just got whacked lately. And that's actually good news because it means the economy is not going to, the stock market as a whole is not going to get whacked. We're just kind of seeing that recovery in terms of, I'm in the wrong stock here. CRISPR, CRSP. There we go. Huge sell-off here in CRISPR, huge rally to the upside and huge sell-off. So it's actually healthy. We're taking the fluff out of the high flyers and distributing to the other names. What do I like here going forward? Symbol updates. I added Federal Express. We talked about Restoration Hardware. What do I like going forward here? CVS Pharmacy. Now this is not a stock that's going to make you rich. But some amazing statistics about this. This company has a network of almost 10,000 drugstores across the USA. 71% of the U.S. population was within 5 miles of a CVS. Earnings growth, pretty reasonable, 3% for such a big company. Dividend yield, almost 3%. So I like CVS. Not a stock that's going to make you rich, but it's going to benefit from the COVID recovery for sure, as well as expansion and improvement of the economy, generally speaking. General Electric, I did pretty good with that one. Certainly a COVID recovery play. That's just getting back to the top. It's 100% line, so it's got a ways to go. I think they recently announced a 8-for-1 reverse stock split. DraftKings, DKNG. This is another interesting thing that you can do with FibLines. So DraftKings is only for the first time passing above its 161 line, up on its way to its 261 line. So if to use a baseball analogy, DraftKings is in the first or second inning of its move, whereas something like Restoration Hardware is like the bottom of the 9th inning. So that's another thing you can do with FibLines. It gives you a sense of where the stock is in its life cycle. So I have high hopes for DraftKings. It's going to take time, but stick with it. I think you're going to do well. What else? Bitcoin. I bought some Bitcoin early in 2021, put about $1,800 in, made a quick 300, took it out. Then I sat out, unfortunately, on the big move of Bitcoin from, say, 44,000 up to about 60,000. Got back in just recently, put about $4,900 in, and immediately sold off till about $4,200, and then came all the way back. And right now, Bitcoin is kind of right on the edge of 60,000. It ran up to 60,000, then it's kind of stopped, and it's been finding resistance there recently. I think it's going to break through eventually, and make it to 100,000 at the end of the year. So I'm hoping to benefit from that. I bought it through this website called Coinbase. Makes it very easy to buy Bitcoin. About a 2% commission on the way in, so my 4,900 immediately turned into 4,200. It's going to be 48 and change soon after the deposit, but I believe it's going to come back, and I believe that Bitcoin is a good place for your money, at least any residual money that you might have, just because all this government monetary expansion is going to eventually lead to inflation. And the good thing about Bitcoin is they're not really making any more of it. There's only a fixed amount of Bitcoin out there, and it's essentially an inflation play. Speaking of inflation, bond yields have gone up lately, and we can see that through the move in the TLT. So bonds have taken a hit here, so there's definitely fear of inflation out there in the bond market, because bondholders hate inflation because it erodes their future value of their yield. So we're going to see more monetary inflation with the government throwing as much money as they are around Bitcoin. I think it's going to benefit from that. You can see the way it's impacted bonds. So that's pretty much it. We talked about this is a method I was looking at early in 2021 where I buy new all-time highs in price for reasonable PEs. That portfolio did pretty well until the market turned around in mid-February and it sliced through the lower half of the, in many cases, the bottom of my range bands. So I had to sold out of those and ended up pretty much flat in this portfolio. And then a Tastyworks account, we do active option trading. At one point I was up very nicely, but turned around and got whacked there, down about 8% right now. Very small amount of money, not too concerned about that, but it shows I do need to be more selective in what I do in option trading. This account is basically really just selling iron condors, and I need to come up with a strategy where I switch between selling premium and buying it, because sometimes it makes sense to do one or the other. So more to come on that. And in closing, you can get the FibLines indicator up here at the fibtools.sells.com. It works for the Thinkorswim platform, and it contains the FibLines levels for about 200 major symbols. It's got all your major ETFs, SPY, your DIA, your IWM. I talked about IWM last quarterly update. It's pretty amazing the way it obeyed the FibLines here after this early sell-off in early 2020. Came all the way down here to the bottom of the sequence, came all the way back, and then recently made a new all-time high. Came up here to the 423 level, and then just kind of bounced very nicely recently off these gray lines, which are minor subdivisions of the Fib levels. So you have that, you have your NASDAQ 100, you have your Dow 30, and then a lot of other major symbols are in here. I add new ones occasionally. And the gold, dollar index, select sector, spiders, they're all in here. And again, the indicator includes the levels are sort of baked into the indicator as well as those calculations. So we can see the FibLines for CVS or for Norwegian Cruise Lines is one that I'm in. That one right here. Yeah, done pretty well on that one. That's another COVID recovery play. So anyway, you can get the FibLines indicator up here at the FibTools Sell Store for $99, and that includes the full source code of the indicator plus 4 quarterly updates. I do these updates once per quarter. That's it. So thanks for watching, and if you're interested in that indicator, check out the fibtoolsells.com. And thanks for watching. Good luck, stay safe, and good trading.